so many of these people that they're not even sure who's in charge. And they're fighting with each other. And another thing is that, well, here's the problem. Let me back up. Victor Davis Hanson. You might be familiar with him. When his book came out, The Second World Wars, a few years ago, he was talking about the fact that one of the reasons that Hitler and the Emperor of Japan, Hirohito, weren't really able to coordinate real well was because homicidal maniacs don't tend to trust each other. So Hitler wakes up December 1941, says, Pearl Harbor? Wait, what? Where's that? What? Huh? What? Oh, great. Now I have to declare war on the U.S. I wasn't quite ready for that yet. So why am I talking about that when Iran is front and center? Well, okay. So in case you forgot, or in case you didn't realize, in case you're just hearing this for the first time, our first missile strike on Iran was Saturday, February 28th, Saturday morning out of a clear blue sky. Nobody in Iran was expecting anything like this because anytime Israel or the U.S. had ever hit them before, it was always in the dark of night. So the Ayatollah and close to 50 of the top regime folks were sitting around at a breakfast meeting on a beautiful day in Tehran, Saturday morning, February 28th. Hey, pass me some of that baklava. Yeah, I want some of that yogurt. Give me a hard-boiled egg with a pita. They're sitting around. Yeah, unbeknownst to them, Israel had a missile system that shoots a missile straight up into the air. It almost leaves the Earth's orbit, but not quite, and then comes back down, straight down on the target, thus making it impossible for the anti-missile defense system of the other country to see it coming. So it takes them out. The Ayatollah and probably somewhere around 50 of the top regime guys. So everybody in charge of this, that, or the other thing. The IRGC, anything else, gone. And then we kept on targeting these people and the people that were left in the weeks after that. So, again, why did I mention, oh, hang on a second. I'm sorry. Hang on just a second. Hey, brother, look, I'm doing a live radio talk show. Can I call you back a little bit later?
You know, I thought about that. I'll let you go.
That's all right. It's always good to hear from you, man, sir. God bless you. All right, bye-bye. As the great philosopher Dave Ramsey once said, and then sometimes life happens. Anyway, so the reason I'm talking about Hitler and Emperor Hirohito is because whatever small fry are left in charge of the Iranian army or the Islamic Republican Guard Corps or the Iranian parliament, whatever, they're thugs. They're murderers. And they don't trust each other. And so they're wondering, I forgot. I forgot. The delicious part. One of the things that was done before we took out anybody was they brought in mercenaries from Afghanistan. Okay? To help them like shoot their protesters in the street and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so one of the things that has started to occur to people who are in positions of power only because the guy who used to have that position was taken out by a missile from the U.S. or Israel. One of the things they've started to think about is, wait, how come Israel and the U.S. aren't taking out any of these Afghan mercenaries that have been in our country for a while? Uh-oh. So now they're starting to get really paranoid and really suspicious of their fellow Muslims from other countries. Like, wait a minute. Are you guys stabbing us in the back? Yo, what's up with that? So in the meantime, we are taking advantage of all of this chaos and all of this paranoia. Now, the other thing is, homicidal maniacs don't like to hear bad news. I'll go back to Hitler again. When the Allies hit the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, June 6, 1944, Hitler was taking a nap, or he hadn't woken up yet, or whatever it was, and nobody, and I mean nobody, wanted to bother der Fuhrer. Okay, wait a minute. You want to be the guy to wake up der Fuhrer when he's not ready to wake up yet? Your funeral, pal. Have fun. No, that's not going to happen. Okay, so bring it up to present day. The guys in charge of Iran who are fighting with each other over who's in charge of Iran are just as much homicidal maniacs as Adolf Hitler ever was. And guess what they don't want to hear? Well, they don't want to hear bad news. So, again, some of the mainstream media is lying to you. We have not closed the Strait of Hormuz. All we've done is block Iran's ports to any naval activity trying to enter or leave Iran's ports. That's it. That's all we've done. So, what does that do to their oil refining facilities on Karg Island? Well, it means they can no longer ship the oil to anybody. So not only are they losing, young Tommy, correct me if I got this figure wrong, I think it's $450 million a year, a day. Not only are they losing $450 million a day, not only is their economy crushed, not only do the paychecks of the guys working for the IRGC or the military no longer have any value. The old lady is like, I can't buy groceries with this. The inflation's through the roof. But they got no place to put the oil, and they're getting really close to having to shut down their oil facilities on Karg Island. And to the best of my understanding, from everything I've read, that kind of equipment, that kind of machinery was not designed to be put in a dormant category. Once you shut that stuff down, you're ruining it. But who wants to be the one to tell whoever's filling in for the Ayatollah, guess what? We're screwed over here. Probably nobody. So the guys in charge have to figure it out themselves as they're fighting with each other. Hey, how come you didn't tell me? Well, because Allah is Akbar, and we didn't think that you'd appreciate any evidence to the contrary. That's why. Shoot the messenger. No, I didn't mean that literally. Uh-oh. So that's what's up. That's what's going on. Yeah, they're literally starting to be paranoid and questioning how come the mercenaries from Iraq and Afghanistan aren't being targeted? How come it's just us Fascinating, isn't it? I think so. So that's kind of the backdrop for Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff finally, apparently, going to Pakistan to meet with these idiots. I just thought that I should kind of set the stage for you for what's going on. But as always, because I know we have veterans, active duty, all kinds of folks listen to Doc Washburn Show, or people like me who have never been in the military, but are very thankful for the people who have been and who are just trying to pay attention and read the most informed analyses and commentary. So as always, if you want to get in the conversation, number to call is 501-401-1011. More coming up as the Doc Washburn Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer. One oh one point one, The Answer. The Doc Washburn Show continues, or you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. You realize eventually time is going to run out for the guys in charge of Iran. No matter how many times Trump says, oh, okay, Yeah, we'll extend a little bit longer. Time's going to run out. Now, there are two different factors of time running out. So let me explain this to you. What we tend to think about is Trump's finally run out of patience, and he's like, just go ahead and take him out. Just go ahead and take him out. So that's what we tend to think about when we say, well, eventually time's going to run out. But see, the other time running out that I had alluded to earlier is the economic situation, the oil situation in Iran. And so, you know, Trump's been sitting there saying, hey, man, you better do something. You better get some kind of agreement with us because if you don't, I'm going to take out all your bridges and power plants. And he still could do that. But the question is, when it gets to the point that the guys who are fighting with each other over control of whatever's left of the regime are having a hard time getting groceries too, then will he have to? You know what I'm saying, Holmes? So, yeah, let me look at this this post on X from Ida Turin, born and raised in Iran, but somebody who wants to get back in there and help turn it into a free country. And this person says, update from inside the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Says, I've been scrolling through the IRGC regime channels and their social media lately, the same ones who brag about hunting down protesters under Ayatollah Khamenei's jihad orders. Slowly, it's sinking in for them that they got played hard. They're getting, this is what I was alluding to at the top of the show, in case you're just tuning in. They're getting extremely paranoid, and they keep accusing each other of being coup plotters, spies, or traitors. The funniest comment I read, and something I hadn't even thought of myself, was this one comment, quote, those forces they brought in from Iraq and Afghanistan weren't for the protesters, they were for us. Otherwise, why would Israel not hit them during the war when they were right in the line of fire, unquote. See, that's what I was talking about earlier. It was a sharp, spot-on observation, and I think it's true. Over the past decade, the regime brought in millions of Afghans to act as a kind of a sort of a people's army defending them. The IRGC trained Afghan Shia fighters and sent them to Syria to fight for Assad. Then, after Assad fell, they brought many of them back inside Iran to help suppress the protests. Right after the 12-day war last summer, they suddenly started deporting them en masse. At least 1.5 million kicked out quickly and forcibly, accused of spying for Israel. Clearly, they got scared because they know a mercenary army isn't truly loyal to them. Now, since the war started, a fresh wave of Afghan Shia militias has been coming in anyway and didn't get hit by Israel or the U.S. So the Basij guys in Iran are finally doing the math. Not too bad. Get ready for a coup. One led by defectors inside the regime, coordinated with Israel or the U.S. to purge the hardliners and the Basij guys. It's coming. I don't know, Holmes. I mean, it makes as much sense as just about anything. that we're hearing. But like I say, it's my duty to share these things with you. Now, Mark Dubowitz, really sharp guy. He's the CEO of the FDD, the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. Mark Dubowitz has been looking at what we have accomplished and what we still have to accomplish. And we'll be sharing some of that with you after the bottom of the hour news. President Trump, though, is, well, he's out there speaking, among other things, through his White House press secretary, probably one of the best ever, Caroline Leavitt. And she has said some remarkable things today about what's going on and what the president is going to do. She said that Iran actually reached out to the Trump administration for a meeting. She said, and this is a quote from her talking to John Roberts over there on Fox News earlier today. I can confirm Special Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be off to Pakistan. The Iranians reached out and asked for this in-person conversation. We'll see. Again, it's not because they wanted to, but it's because they have absolutely positively no choice in the matter whatsoever. And well, yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it after the bottom of the hour news. You got the Doc Washburn Show, Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer. What do I play? One, the answer. Doc Washer Show continues. You can sound off and talk back. 501 401 1011. I want to take a look at what this guy, Mark Dubowitz, is saying. Now, again, in case you're just tuning in, CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, who's actually been sanctioned personally by Iran and Russia. So, badge of honor right there, right? All right, here's what he's saying. If you told me a few years ago this is where we would be on Iran, I would have said, you're high. What are you smoking? Number one, their nuke program has been set back years. Enrichment and reprocessing have been gutted. Weaponization sites destroyed. Fordow is no longer operable. Natanz is in ruins. A generation of senior nuclear scientists have also been eliminated. Yeah, we took those guys out. Number two, ballistic missile program of Iran crippled. Monthly production down from 100 to near zero. Roughly half the regime's missiles and launchers have been destroyed. The IRGC Aerospace Force commander who ran the missile enterprise is dead. Gracious, I wonder how that happened. All right, I admit it. We did it. Number three, air defenses have been devastated. American and Israeli air power are dominating Iranian skies with strike aircraft operating over the country of Iran with near impunity. Number four, full economic warfare, not just OFAC sanctions anymore. This drives me crazy. No, it's just an occupational hazard. When somebody has a has an abbreviation and I don't know what it stands for. Office of Foreign Assets Control. Okay, thanks. You could have said it. Anyway, not just operation of foreign assets control sanctions anymore, but military pressure layered on top. Naval blockade, near zero oil exports out of Iran, choked imports, wrecked steel and petrochemical sectors, triple-digit inflation, and a currency that is effectively worthless in Iran. Number five, regime decapitation. Ayatollah Khamenei, dead. Larijani, dead. Hundreds of senior IRGC, intelligence, military, and Basij commanders dead, including the IRGC commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the armed forces, and the aerospace force commander. Mojtaba Khamenei inheriting a hollowed-out regime with no supreme authority and a gutted command structure. Now, wait. Let me digress for just a second about the new Ayatollah, son of the old Ayatollah, because Jesse Waters on Fox last night says sources tell the New York Times that the gay Ayatollah is a burned up vegetable. He's missing a leg. He's had 3 surgeries on the other one, surgeries on his hand, and his face and lips are burnt severely, so burnt the Ayatollah can't talk and actually needs a facelift. Now, if you'll recall, the morning of Saturday, February 28th, when we hit his father, Ayatollah Khamenei, and almost 50 other top regime officials out of a clear blue sky, right before the missile hit, he apparently said he had to walk out into the garden, leave a little breakfast meeting there, walk out into the garden to take care of something. And nobody's ever said what it was. So a lot of people are saying that's the only reason that he wasn't killed also. However, if what the sources are telling the New York Times is true, he was close enough to get quite a blast. Lost a leg in bad shape. And so regime people who ever since then have been claiming to speak for him, probably making the whole thing up. He could have been in a coma all this time for all we know. But I digress. So, number 6. And again, if you're just tuning in, this is Mark Dubowitz, CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, saying if you had told me a few years ago this is where we'd be on Iran, I'd have said you were high. Number 6, the region. That means the other countries outside Iran. The region is turning on Tehran. Gulf states shutting down the sanctions-busting, money laundering, and financial escape routes that the regime has relied on for years. No Arab capital is willing to throw Iran a lifeline. China and Russia have just been providing limited support. Now, what he doesn't say right here, but if you've been listening to Doc Washburn show, you know the reason that the other Muslim countries in the area are refusing to lift a finger to help their fellow Muslim regime in Iran is because as soon as we hit Iran, they started hitting the other Muslim countries. And so, what are you going to do if you're the king of Saudi Arabia, if you're the emir of Qatar or Bahrain or the UAE or whatever? You're like, dude, why are you hitting us? Israel and the U.S. hit you. We've stayed out of it, but you're hitting us. Oh, screw us. No, actually, I think it's screw you. I mean, it's just, but again, and I can't stress this strongly enough, when you are taught a maniacal hatred of other people from the cradle, but you're not taught logic, linear reasoning, and you don't even know what objective reality is. Good luck trying to figure out cause and effect. And when you are the recipient of 13 centuries of something that Muhammad encouraged, which is first cousins marrying, and the IQ keeps on going down over the millennia, you literally don't know that it's a bad idea to shoot missiles trying to hit your fellow Muslim countries. You literally can't figure out that's a bad idea. You might need their help, and they're not going to help you now. Man, that's stupid. To quote the great philosopher, the late, great Don Rickles. Anyway, number 7, Iran's proxy network has been shattered. Hezbollah and Hamas have been heavily degraded. Houthi political leadership is now taking direct Israeli strikes. Oh, that's good. I didn't realize that. I like getting good news on a late Friday afternoon. The so-called axis of resistance and the ring of fire are now more slogans than real threats. Oh, for real, man. The most real ring of fire right now is going to be if you have an old 45 record of Johnny Cash singing it. That's it. Forget ring of fire in Iran. Number 8. The Syrian corridor is severed. Assad is gone. The new government in Damascus is actively blocking Iranian arms transfers to Hezbollah, arresting smugglers, and publicly declaring Syria will no longer serve as a transit corridor for Tehran's terrorists. The land bridge to the Mediterranean that took decades to build is now effectively closed. Now, that doesn't really deal with the fact that the guys now in charge of Syria are really, really bad guys. It's just they're really, really bad guys that no longer want to help Iran. Okay, duly noted. Number 9, Lebanon is in the process of pivoting toward the west, with Hezbollah battered and resupply choked. Israel and Lebanon have opened direct peace talks for the first time since 1983, aimed at a permanent agreement and Hezbollah's disarmament. Beirut is now asserting that the Lebanese armed forces alone are responsible for national defense. This is a direct repudiation of Hezbollah's resistance claim. So all that's to be determined. Number 10, deterrence has been exposed as a bluff. 4 direct attacks on Israel. April 2024, October 2024, June 2025, and March 2026 failed to impose strategic cost and instead triggered heavy retaliation. And now Iran wasn't even allowed to use Syria as a launch pad. Number 11, economy hollowed out from within. Power shortages, water crises, factory shutdowns, pension unrest, mass protests, nationwide demonstrations erupted in December 2025 after a year of economic freefall, with Bazaris, oil workers, and truckers, the regime's traditional support base, joining strikes across all 31 provinces of Iran, running out of oil storage space. That's what I told you earlier. Running out of oil storage space, fuel shortages, the worst crisis since 1979. Number 12, scientific and technical brain drain. Beyond the nuclear experts, who are all dead now, Iran has lost a generation of irreplaceable expertise in missile design, centrifuge engineering, and weapons development. The survivors are harder to recruit and easier to deter. Number 13, naval power decimated. The regular Navy shattered, IRGC Navy taking growing losses as CENTCOM moves to reopen Hormuz. And against all this, the regime forced to play its Hormuz card at its weakest possible moment when the U.S. has options instead of when we didn't, namely Tehran with nuclear-armed ICBMs, 10,000 ballistic missiles, a Chinese and Russian-built military, hundreds of thousands of attack drones, a fully operational terror network, and hundreds of billions of dollars to harden its economy. That's the strategic picture. It's extraordinary, much more to do, but I can't comprehend how much has already been achieved. Now, coming up, we'll get into Mark Dubowitz's list of the challenges that are ahead. As the Doc Washer Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer. 101.1, The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back. 501-401-1011. You know, it really, really has been amazing what this president and this Secretary of War, using this military, have been able to accomplish. It's just stunning. Now, if you're just tuning in, we're taking a look at Mark Dubowitz, CEO of the Foundation for Defense of Democracy, and a long list of things that we have gotten done here in the past, not even 2 months yet. Still many challenges ahead. Number one, the battle over the Strait of Hormuz. Number two, the Red Sea and the Houthis. Number three, enriched material. Number four, Pickaxe Mountain. Number five, internal repression of Iranians. Yeah, that's got to stop. The only way that's going to stop. He doesn't get into any details. He got in a lot of details in the first thing I shared with you. He doesn't get any details on this. The only way that's going to stop is there has to be actual, total, and complete regime change. They're still executing teenagers, as bad as things are there, because they're hardcore. Ain't but the one way. They're all about Allah Akbar. You got to take them all out. Trump has to know you can never get an agreement with these people that they will be faithful to. That's like saying you can get Ted Bundy or Charlie Manson to sign an agreement. No, not going to happen. Number six, reconstitution, nuclear, missile, and proxies. Number seven, American political calendar, including presidential election coming up in 2028 and new president January 2029. Number eight, negotiations leading to a fatally flawed deal. You know, we need to pray for our leaders that doesn't happen. Number nine, success leads us to abandon Iranians. Number 10, replacing depleted war materials. Yeah, we got to make sure that all that stuff doesn't happen. And there's nothing directly that you and I can do about that, but we can pray that God will give our leaders the wisdom to do the right thing and to not do the wrong thing. So that's what's going on. Now, Paul Sperry, reporter over at RealClearInvestigations.com and a columnist in the New York Post, says breaking Southern Poverty Law Center also works closely with Mediarator NewsGuard to censor conservative press. For instance, Democrat-run NewsGuard relied extensively on the Southern Poverty Law Center for its bad rating, low trust score, for the anti-terror news site Jihad Watch, long blacklisted by Southern Poverty Law Center as a so-called hate group, even though its founder, Robert Spencer, is a noted scholar on Islam. NewsGuard is also currently under federal investigation. Well, that's good. Robert Spencer says, in fact, the NewsGuard enforcer recently contacted me, and here was the response that I sent her. And we linked to PJ Media. A far-left NewsGuard so-called fact checker asked me some questions. Here are the answers I gave her. Oh, this ought to be pretty good. He says, Leftists have been trying for years to fool the public into rejecting the voices of those who dissent from their agenda by posing as neutral fact checkers, purporting to identify so called fake news. What they're really trying to do is not ensure the accuracy of news reporting at all, but to silence and destroy those who tell the truth about things they lie about or uncover what they want to conceal. One of the most foremost exponents of the ongoing scam is NewsGuard, a particularly sinister initiative of the hard left, self appointed news arbiter Stephen Brill. During the dark days of the Biden regime, which was the authoritarian threat the leftists pretend that Trump is, NewsGuard received almost $750,000 from the Department of Defense. What possible benefit could a leftist propaganda outfit masquerading as a neutral fact checking service have to the Department of Defense? Well, when the DOD was a corrupt and politicized government agency that was more concerned about defending the Biden regime from its political opponents than with defending the United States of America from its enemies, it likely found NewsGuard quite handy. And NewsGuard is still at it. Although you'd think that if Trump really were what the left claims him to be, it would have been shut down. NewsGuard contributing editor Madeline Roach emailed me claiming that my website, Jihad Watch, had posted false and misleading content, assuming that NewsGuard has some actually recognized right to judge the accuracy of news sites, and asked for a phone call. He says, "Hi, Madeline. No, we can't arrange a call. I have a few questions for you, however. NewsGuard is well known for not being objective, but rather for trying to stigmatize, demonize, and destroy news sites that dissent from the left's agenda. Are you personally, as an employee of NewsGuard, comfortable with this initiative, or is this just a job for you? Put it more simply, are you a committed authoritarian bent on destroying the freedom of speech, or just a useful idiot?" If you deny my core assumption in question number one, the NewsGuard is not objective, but is instead an attack dog for the far left disguised as a fact checker, can you provide any examples of patriotic news sites, that is, non-leftist ones, to which you have given high marks? Be specific. NewsGuard used to send its tendentious, look it up, "When did you stop beating your wife?" type questions via email. Now, instead, you want a phone call. Is this meant to catch patriotic journalists and news analysts off guard with less time to prepare careful responses to the traps embedded within your questions? This is beautiful. I love it. All right. More coming up. More breaking news at the top of the hour of the Doc Washburn Show, Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer. 101.1 The Answer, Doc Washburn Show continues. Reach out off the talkback 501 401 101.1. Well, actually, you don't have a point in the phone number. I apologize profusely. Anyway, I don't know if you are aware how massive, what a big deal the Southern Poverty Law Center announcement was. The charges against them are. I don't know if you're aware. And I want to get to that in a minute. But we've got we got some more news here from this afternoon from the Department of Justice. New York Times reported today that Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is moving forward with investigations and prosecutions against 5 people. And so here are the 5. And a big shout out to Brian Allen, podcast host over at Never Stop Connecting the Dots, for sharing this. First of all, Cassidy Hutchinson, she was a star witness at the January 6th committee hearings. She testified under oath about what she said she saw at the White House on January 6th, but she also testified hearsay, claiming that after President Trump left his speech at the Ellipse on January 6th, and he was in the passenger seat, back seat of the, what they call the Beast, the big SUV. He wanted to be taken to the Capitol, and the Secret Service driver refused. And so she claimed that he was trying to jump over the seat and wrestle the steering wheel away from the Secret Service agents, which is just ridiculous. Okay, so who else in the New York Times reporting today that Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is moving forward with investigations and prosecutions? None other than former FBI Director James Comey, fired by Trump in 2017, previously indicted by the Justice Department, case dismissed by a federal judge in November. Fani Willis, district attorney in Atlanta, she brought the Georgia election interference case against Trump. DOJ now preparing to subpoena her bodyguards over her travel. Might be a perjury chat there with a boyfriend. Just saying. Former CIA Director John Brennan, his investigation is being accelerated. The career prosecutor running the case was just replaced with a Trump loyalist named Joe DeGeneva. Well, that's not really true. That's really not true. The career prosecutor running the case is still running the case. Joe DeGeneva has been appointed a special advisor to the Attorney General, and he's probably going to be overseeing the grand jury in Fort Pierce, Florida, that is doing much more than just looking into John Brennan. But again, New York Times, you got to take what you can get, right? Act Blue and the Southern Poverty Law Center. By the way, did I mention to you that when the Act Blue people were under oath in a congressional hearing recently, they took the fifth over 150 times? No, buddy. I'm not talking about a fifth of whiskey. No, I'm talking about they invoked their constitutional right under the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution not to implicate themselves. Took the fifth. Does everything go back to drinking? Good grief. Okay, all right. I'll try to learn to stop talking in shorthand. All right. You got a point. Duly noted. So anyway, this guy, Brian Allen, says every one of these 5 people were public opponents of Donald Trump. None of them accused of the same crime. None of them are accused of working together. What they have in common is Donald Trump does not like them. Contraire. They might not be accused of working together yet. This Brian Allen guy doesn't understand something. He doesn't understand something, which is that the Fort Pierce, Florida grand jury is looking into an overarching conspiracy. Know what I'm saying? That's what he doesn't get. But hey, that's all right. I don't mind. All right. So, having said all of that, let me get back to, pardon me. We do have some audio clips we need to share with you. And let's see, what do we have loaded so far, sir? Okay. All right. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, talking about the situation that we are in. Let's go with cut one, please.
Unlike the endless wars of the past that dragged on for years and for decades with little to show for it, Operation Epic Fury has delivered a decisive military results in just weeks. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, as the president has pointed out, all took years, decades, vague missions, shifting sands, little to show for it. Operation Epic Fury has been laser focused from the very start, as I've said to all of you. Clear mission objectives, and ultimately Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. It's a bold and dangerous mission, a gift to the world, historic, courtesy of a bold and historic president. That mission continues today in this new phase as Iran has an important choice, a chance to make a deal, a good deal, a wise deal.
But you know they won't. You absolutely positively know that they won't. But when he talks about what we've done vis-a-vis Iran and the Strait of Hormuz being a gift to the world, think about it. Earlier on the show, we pointed out that as soon as we hit them, they started hitting their Muslim neighbors. The Muslim neighbors who had never hit them. Okay, these guys are lunatics who want to create chaos and blow up the world. So, regardless of the fact that our NATO allies didn't lift a finger to try to help us, what we have done really has been a gift to the world. Just so you know. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, cut two, please.
As part of that effort, the United States has imposed an ironclad blockade that grows more powerful by the day. From the Gulf of Oman to the open oceans, our Navy is enforcing this blockade without hesitation or apology. Now, as usual, there's a lot of false information out there. I'll say this, every ship that the U.S. believes meets our criteria, either Iranian ships or to and from Iranian ports, has been turned around. As of this morning, 34 total. Non-Iranian vessels are allowed to transit, and many have, including overnight.
Again, goes back to the fact that some, not all, but some of the mainstream media has been lying. We never announced we were closing the Strait of Hormuz. We were closing the Iranian ports. Big difference. Everybody else, business as usual. All right, let's do one more before the break. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, cut three, please.
Not only is the blockade growing, in fact, a second aircraft carrier will join the blockade in just a few days, but this growing blockade is also gone global. Just this week, we seized 2 Iranian dark fleet ships in the Indo-Pacific region that had left Iranian ports before the blockade went into effect. They thought they'd made it out just in time. They did not. We seized their sanctioned ships, and we will seize more. Our blockade is growing and going global.
It definitely is, man. See, I didn't know that until he announced that today. We even grabbed a couple of ships that thought they got it out in time, and they're out in the Indian Ocean. We're like, no, this applies to you guys too. What? Allah Akbar? No, we don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it, man. Fascinating. Now, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who's scheduled to have a baby next week, was still in front of the cameras today, and she was on fire, and we got that coming up for you. We're going to try to squeeze as much breaking news as we possibly can in between now and 6 p.m. Central as the Doc Washer Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer. One oh one point one, The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back at 501 401 1011. I don't know if you heard about this, but it was reported last night. 15 powerful chemical spraying drones were stolen in a suspected highly coordinated theft in New Jersey last month. The FBI is investigating and is spooked due to the drone's capabilities as ready-made chemical/biological dispersal systems. That's not good, man. The great Gordon Chang, author of the book Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, responded to this story saying we should brace ourselves for a biological or chemical weapons attack. China's agents, by the way, have been smuggling pathogens into our country. Well, how many stories do you want of these makeshift labs, like the one in Southern California we talked about a few months ago, and the people in charge are citizens of communist China? Anyway, we got Caroline Levitt ready. All right, White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt, cut one, please.
Can you confirm that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are headed to Islamabad to meet with the foreign minister, Araghchi?
Well, thank you, John, for having me. It's great to be with you as always. And yes, I can confirm Special Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be off to Pakistan again tomorrow morning to engage in talks, direct talks intermediated by the Pakistanis, who have been incredible friends and mediators throughout this entire process, with representatives from the Iranian delegation. Look, the Iranians reached out, as the president called on them to do, and asked for this in-person conversation. So the president is dispatching Steve and Jared to go hear what they have to say. And we're hopeful that it will be a productive conversation and hopefully move the ball forward towards a deal. I mean, look, President Trump has made his red lines throughout this entire process very clear. He was flexible in extending the ceasefire. And so Steve and Jared will be off to hear what they have to say.
Okay. You know what my fallback position is. You know what I continue to go back to, because I don't think I'm alone in being impatient for this thing to be dealt with. However, at the end of the day, when it's all over, at least President Trump and his team can say, look, we bent over backwards, man. We did everything we could do. But in the final analysis, they just wouldn't play ball. So we had to take the rest of them out. Simple as that. Nobody can say, well, if you'd only been willing to. No, we did. We were willing to, but they weren't. Okay? Anyway, Caroline Levitt, cut two, please.
Southern Poverty Law Center was a very reputable organization at one point in time, and they have unfortunately transformed into a criminal organization run by fraudsters who are paying for and inciting this very racism that they claim to stand against. Now, you mentioned the Charlottesville hoax, John. It's a brilliant point, because that is one of the most vicious and egregious smears that has been used against President Trump over the course of the past 11 years since he got himself into politics. And this group funded some of the funders of that hoax, that not only the media ate up like candy, but that the Democrats ran campaigns on.
Exactly. Democrat Party has been funding the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, since the end of the Civil War. Now, for those of you listening in Dumas or DeWitt, that was 1865, so 161 years ago. Just so you know. All right. Do we have White House Press Secretary par excellence, Caroline Levitt, for cut three, please?
If you recall, in 2020, Joe Biden launched his campaign for president on the basis of the Charlottesville hoax. It was a total lie, and it was funded by this organization that claims to stand against racism. I'm glad to see accountability is being had thanks to the Department of Justice. And I would like to criticize the legacy media. If you read articles about this case and this indictment in the New York Times, they're trying to claim that this is a weaponization of justice from from the Trump DOJ. It couldn't be further from the truth. This was a grand jury indictment made up of Americans who realized that this organization was engaging in criminal activity, and they need to be held accountable for it.
Yeah, they do. By the way, I don't know if you heard the reports out today that DOJ, United States Department of Justice, has announced it is readopting the firing squad as a means of execution for federal capital crimes. Now, I was in a group text and a buddy of mine said, well, I hope that applies to the military tribunals. I said, well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the military and the DOJ are two different things. Pretty sure the military already has the option of firing squads. So it's, yeah, this is a different deal. I don't know if you heard this story. This girl out of North Carolina, 18-year-old woman from North Carolina, allegedly planned to drive all the way to Houston, Texas, the oldest synagogue in Texas, to, quote, kill as many Jews as possible by driving through a congregation, unquote. Angelina Han Hicks was arrested and charged before any attack could unfold. Investigators uncovered evidence that she and others were allegedly planning a mass casualty event at the Congregation Beth Israel Synagogue in Houston, Texas. Two other suspects still at large. Their whereabouts are unknown. Young Ms. Hicks, 18 years old, is being held on $10 million bond. Well, it's not like she kind of goofed up there, because she was just a few weeks away from graduating and going to college. And, well, I'm reminded of the old, y'all remember that show used to come on Friday nights on network TV, Homicide: Life on the Streets? It was a great crime show. And there was this kid on the show who confessed to committing murder. And he was played by the actor that played Steve on the Blues Clues TV show, the kiddie TV show. And so the two homicide detectives look at each other, and they look at the guy playing Blues Clues, who's just like playing a high school kid, and confessed to killing a guy. And they're like, okay, Fred, your life is going to be changing from here on out. And here's how that's going to go. And buddy. Yeah. Now, fortunately, she was unable to follow through and kill anybody, but still probably goof things up for her. I'm just saying. Probably goof things up for her. Anyway, more breaking news coming up as the Doc Washburn Show continues after the bottom of the hour. News 101.1, The Answer. 101.1, The Answer, Doc Washer Show continues. So you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. You may know the name James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe started Project Veritas. He's been doing undercover investigative videos, basically exposing corruption and crime for many, many years. Started off with Acorn. Don't they still own a nonprofit FM station in Little Rock? I think they do. Anyway, James O'Keefe posted last night, the police just came to my office and confiscated all my firearms. Just happened. And he posted on X a picture of the official paperwork from the West Palm Beach Police Department. So how'd that happen? Well, first of all, years ago, the Florida State Legislature passed a law called Red Flag Law. And the governor at the time, Rick Scott, signed it. So if you want to call and say, I think my neighbor's dangerous, you need to take his guns away. Okay, sure. Sure enough. So in case you know who Rick Scott is, who's now a U.S. Senator from Florida, you know, the unusual looking guy with the bald head. Yeah, that's on him. That's on him. And people on social media, people over there on X are saying, well, how can Ron DeSantis allow something like this to happen in Florida? Well, I'll tell you how Governor DeSantis can allow it to happen. It's because the Florida State Legislature passed it before he was governor, when Rick Scott was still governor, and Rick Scott, who apparently couldn't care less about the Second Amendment rights of innocent Americans, signed it. That's how. Yeah, but now how can he? Well, if the Florida State Legislature decides to undo this awful thing that they did and pass a bill outlawing the red flag law, I guarantee you Governor DeSantis will sign it as soon as it hits his desk. Now, here are the details. And a big thank you to social media influencer Robert Culp for following this so closely. A guy caught on camera saying, I would kill him, talking about James O'Keefe, while shooting rifle bullets through his photo, got a court order yesterday to disarm the guy that he threatened. Police showed up and confiscated James O'Keefe's firearms in West Palm Beach. This is peak clown world. The threatener gets the gun grab, the target gets disarmed. Insanity. All right, here are the details from last night from James O'Keefe's position. O'Keefe released hidden camera footage showing this guy Termond saying he would kill O'Keefe, calling him one of the most evil people he knew, and using a photo of O'Keefe's book Breakthrough for target practice with rifle bullets through the heart area on the cover. After the video's publication, some audience members, third parties, reacted angrily and allegedly made threats or harassing comments toward Termond. Termond then fired a domestic violence stalking petition in Miami-Dade family court, leading to an ex parte temporary injunction against O'Keefe, who had nothing to do with anything. O'Keefe describes this as what they call a heckler's veto. The court effectively punished or restricted his journalism because of how third parties responded to the protected speech, the reporting, not because O'Keefe or his team directly stalked, threatened, or committed violence against Termond. He has called it unconstitutional prior restraint on the press, First Amendment, and is appealing, including an emergency interlocutory appeal, while also planning an anti-SLAPP motion for attorney's fees. The judge issued/extended the temporary restraining order based on Termond's petition finding enough initial basis for a reasonable cause of fear, standard for temporary stalking/repeat violence injunctions in Florida. Specific details from Termon's filing aren't fully public, but O'Keefe's account aligns with reports that it ties back to the fallout from the published video rather than independent direct threats from O'Keefe. Firearms surrender is automatic under Florida law for qualifying injunctions, regardless of who made the original threats. A full hearing is scheduled for May 11th. O'Keefe also filed his own restraining order against Termond in Palm Beach County. And O'Keefe says that's a really good summary. The great Dana Loesch, nationally syndicated radio talk show host out of St. Louis, Loesch, said, thank Rick Scott for Florida's red flag laws, which allow this. Based on these details, it's surprising that any judge would issue one at all, but that's red flag. The lowest standard of proof applied, the penalty rendered, and due process inverted to guilty until proven innocent. Wow. So, this morning, James O'Keefe said Judge Marie Mato just overturned the firearms prohibition placed upon me in the state of Florida. Order was coming at a hearing in Miami this morning. Judge Mato stated, Mr. O'Keefe, you're free to pick up your firearms in West Palm Beach at the sheriff's office. The judge said, I appreciate your compliance, Mr. O'Keefe, with this court's order, despite your objection, but I'm deleting these provisions, in other words, prohibitions, on his Second Amendment rights. Wow, man. Yeah, the guy who threatened to kill James O'Keefe was allowed to get O'Keefe's guns taken away. James O'Keefe said today, last night a judge in the 11th Judicial Circuit Court ordered me to surrender my personal firearms to West Palm Beach Police Department or face contempt and possible jail time. Today, the firearms are being returned to me. Why'd this happen? I conducted an investigation into former Project Veritas board member Matthew Termond, a man who has repeatedly stated that he wants to kill me, quote, eat my heart out, unquote, and who even fired a bullet through my image on my book Breakthrough. This individual is the same person who forced me out of the company I founded, Project Veritas. Matthew Termond filed a complaint against me and one of my undercover reporters in the Domestic Violence Division of Miami-Dade Family Court, alleging stalking. A judge then ordered me to surrender my personal firearms or face contempt of court, which could result in jail time. What precedent does this set for our country if I am forced to surrender my Second Amendment rights for investigating a man who has openly expressed the desire to murder me? Again, we are at a breaking point in our country. Thank you to the judge this morning for breaking off this ruling and allowing the firearms to be returned to me. Shame the devil. Stay tuned. You know, I got to tell you something. And you might think I'm crazy for what it reminds me of. But I'll never forget when I met the Stanley family in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Back, I guess about 11 years ago. And the thing that so many people said was, how could this happen in America? Well, does this remind you of that? James O'Keefe did nothing wrong whatsoever. The guy who threatened him with murder got his guns taken away overnight. The Stanley family, Hot Springs, Arkansas, early 2015. The state of Arkansas, through DCFS, kidnapped their children for several months. How could this happen in America? Well, first of all, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And since everybody on the face of this earth is a sinner, sometimes when sinners get power, they do worse than other people do. Just a thought. Speaking of power corrupting, CNN is reporting the Trump administration is considering eliminating Ahmad Vahidi, commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, due to his extreme positions, which are an obstacle to advancing negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. You know, I like that idea. I like that idea, don't get me wrong. But I would hope that while they're at it, they would just kind of go ahead and take out the rest of the IRGC. No, not just Ahmad Vahidi, commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, but the rest of them while you're at it. Just go ahead and do them. Yeah. I'm reminded, I hope this is not an apocryphal memory because it's been so long since I was in junior high. But if I recall correctly, when we go to the junior high football games, the cheerleaders, if I recall correctly, would say something along the lines of, "Whomp them upside the head." I said, "Whomp upside the head, somebody." Tommy, you ever heard that cheer before? Okay, you have. Okay, so maybe I'm not imagining things here in my dotage, in my antiquity, in my old age. Well, I think, of course, when cheerleaders say it at a junior high or even a high school football game, it is thought of as possibly being somewhat metaphorical. But when we say it in reference to Ahmad Vahidi, peace be not upon him, commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and the rest of the IRGC, I mean it literally. Whomp them upside the head, somebody. Okay. Well, no. Allah is not Akbar after all. But more on this coming up. The Doc Washer Show continues. Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1, The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back. 501-401-1011. Last night, heavy residential fire spread to a church in Astoria, Queens, New York City, raised to a 5-alarm fire. First Reformed Church of Astoria was established in 1839 in New York City, and it went up in smoke last night. And an actual councilwoman, Republican councilwoman, District 19 of Queens, New York City, said, I'm sure it's a coincidence that one of New York City's most historic churches is burning down in Zohran Mamdani's neighborhood. Yeah, it must be just a coincidence. Speaking of the category of they're gonna hit us here, a failed Palestinian suicide bomber released as part of an October 7th massacre hostage exchange between Israel and the terrorists spoke remotely to University of California, Berkeley students on Monday at an event held in one of the university's classrooms. When are we going to be able to stop sending federal money to colleges that support jihad? Just a question. Just a thought. Round Rock, Texas. I remember that. It's a suburb of Austin, a little bit north of Austin. Round Rock Independent School District, Texas, purges Bibles from high school libraries and replaces them with Korans. Brother, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Now, again, I've said to you that if your business or your church doesn't have a plan for what to do, if God forbid there is an active shooter, you need to get a hold of my buddy, Ed Monk, Last Resort Firearms Training. He'll tell you what to do. He'll do a seminar for you. What the FBI does, the FBI lies to you. They say run away and then hide, and then if the shooter finds you, look around and see what you can fight him with. I went to an FBI seminar on active shooter. I said, why not just shoot the bad guy? Well, we don't recommend that. That hardly ever works. They lie to you. They want to try to get you killed. Ed Monk will tell you the truth. He also has a book you can get on Amazon called The First 30 Seconds. You get to learn a lot. Anyway. So the new U.S. Navy Secretary, his name is Hung Cao, Hungcao. His family came here from Vietnam back in the 70s. By the grace of God, they were able to get out of South Vietnam right before Saigon fell. He grew up a patriotic American. And he's out there this morning speaking at the Patrick Henry College. He said, they call me a white supremacist, but I have one request for them when they give me my hood. Like the KKK, put a hood on. He says, I have one request for them. They call me white supremacist. When they give me my hood, make sure it's got the little slits for the eyes and not the circles so I can see better. Oh! Telling a racist joke on himself. I like the cut of this young man's jib. I like his sense of humor. Man. Wow. So did y'all hear about what the Democrats did over there in Virginia? They got 11 congressional districts, had 6 Democrats and 5 Republicans, and they just flipped it to only 1 Republican district and 10 Democrat districts. And the court has put a stay on this already immediately. But you got a Virginia state senator over there, guy named Democrat named Lamont Bagby. And young Lamont was part of a floor debate on gerrymandering. He said that he knows a little bit about rural America because he watched Dukes of Hazzard. Buddy, come on, man. Do you understand how ridiculous you sound right now? No. Sure don't. Now, have you heard of this guy named Hassan Piker? Hassan Piker, Piker, is very popular with young Democrats. So Democrats running for office actually campaign with this guy, but he keeps on calling for people to be murdered. And that's problematic. He's on his little video podcast there saying, if you cared about Medicare fraud, you would kill Rick Scott. That is a direct quote. And that's okay for Democrats. They'll still campaign with him, even though he is calling for murder of people he disagrees with. You know, that guy Luigi Mangione in New York City a year or so ago that shot and killed this executive with this medical insurance firm, 6:30 in the morning on a sidewalk in New York City. Hassan Piker is like, well, the guy he shot was he was committing medical murder, so it's okay. That's what's going on with the Democrat Party. And you ignore it to your peril. The Pope, I used to have a friend who called him Pope the Dope, even though he remains a Roman Catholic. The Pope is carrying the photo of a Muslim boy who welcomed him to Lebanon. The Pope says the boy was killed in the war. There's one little problem with that. The Pope is wrong because the boy is still alive. But the Pope is a lib, so he'll believe anything. So recently, the Pope called the world devastated by a handful of tyrants, and every newsroom on earth assumed it was a snide remark at Trump. 7 days later, he accidentally soft endorsed one of Trump's most controversial policies, telling Africans to literally stay in their countries, build their countries up, forget about Europe. He did what? Because, Christians are being slaughtered in several countries in Africa, and the Pope won't say a word about that, will he? Nope. He sure won't. Because he's a Chicago liberal, good friends with Obama. Anyway, all right, that is the week for us. Now remember, God willing, Monday morning at 7:06, the great Dave Elzik will be right here. And God willing, Monday afternoon at 4:06, the Doc Washburn Show will return on Liberal Arts Premier Talk radio station, 101.1, The Answer.